In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to work ribbing, which is the stretchy fabric that's often found at the edges of garments or anywhere that you would want a nice finished stretchy edge. So I'm going to start off with 1x1 ribbing, which essentially means one knit stitch alternated with one purl stitch. So I've just worked a couple of rows, but not quite enough for you to see the pattern taking shape yet. So we're going to push the stitches up towards the end of the needle, as usual. And then I'm going to start with a knit stitch. So I'm just going to insert, wrap around, pull it through and bring the stitch off. So I've worked one knit stitch. And then the key to ribbing is alternating the position of your yarn between stitches. Excuse me, sorry. So for a knit stitch, you always have your yarn in the back, but for a purl stitch, you always need your yarn in front. So between the stitches, I need to now bring my yarn to the front. So it's in the correct position now for a purl stitch. Yarn in the front above this needle. So now I can work a purl stitch. Work that one purl stitch, but now my yarn is in front. So I can't simply just work the knit stitch as it is now. I need to bring that yarn around to the back so it's in the correct position for a knit stitch. This is the most common mistake made in ribbing, is forgetting to bring my yarn around. See, if I was to go and purl now, my yarn would get crossed over the needle and I would end up with an extra stitch. So I need to be careful not to do that. So I've just worked a knit, yarn to the front, now work a purl, yarn to the back, knit, stitch, then bring it to the front, purl stitch, then bring it to the back. So this is 1x1 ribbing where I'm alternating one knit stitch with one purl stitch. There are an infinite number of variations on this. You can have 2x2, 3x3, 3x1, all manner of different combinations, but for now we'll just stick with 1x1. So knit one stitch, yarn to front, purl one stitch, yarn to back, knit one stitch, bring the yarn to the front, purl one stitch, bring the yarn to the back. I've almost completed this row, end with a purl stitch. So because I have an even number of stitches, I started with a knit and ended with a purl, which means that when I'm working flat, each row is identical. So just take care to follow your pattern whether you need to work the same row repeatedly or you alternate two different rows. That will depend on whether you've got an even or an odd number of stitches. So we've worked our one row of knit one, purl one, and now I'm going to turn it around, and you can see that we've got the identical fabric on the other side. So ribbing is a reversible stitch. So now we have a knit stitch. We can see the knit column of V's ready at the front there to work exactly the same on the next row. So I'll just do this one a little quicker. So knit one, bring yarn to front, purl one, bring yarn to back, knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one. Helps if you say it out loud. It might sound a bit silly, but I promise it helps to keep track. Purl one, knit one, purl one. Almost at the end now. Final knit one, purl one. So now you can see that's starting to take shape a little more. You have little columns of knit stitches with little sort of divots between them of purl stitches. The knit stitches will always be raised and what's come sort of towards you, and the purl stitches will always want to recede. So that's 1x1 rib. I've got a couple more examples here that I can show you. So here in the same yarn we have 2x2 rib. So you see it has a much chunkier appearance just simply alternating 2 knit stitches with 2 purl stitches. So here I would knit 2 with the yarn in the back, bring my yarn round to the front, then purl 2, and then bring my yarn to the back. So I would alternate the position of my yarn every 2 stitches. So you can see that this also has, all rib has quite elastic properties, they're all quite stretchy. So that's 2x2 rib in this chunky yarn that I'm using here. This is an example of 2x2 rib in a cotton yarn. So again, it does have quite a lot of stretch, but not too much. It doesn't pull in it too much in cotton yarn. Here I have an example of 2x2 rib in a merino blend, which is really stretchy. You can see how it wants to ping back so much. So this is very handy for waistbands and such things. Lots of bounce to the fabric there. Another example of 1x1 rib on this swatch. This is a swatch I made for my Lawrenson sweater, which features 1x1 rib. So here I worked rib just to the regular manner. And then this is something that you don't need to consider as a complete beginner, but one option to neaten that rib up a little is working twisted rib, where you can see it's far more defined. So that was just worked by working twisted stitches. They're all just to show you different variations on rib possibilities anyway, all just by alternating knit and purl stitches.